Yeah,
Mm.
cool. So whenever I want to connect to, so SQL Server is basically a server running on your machine. So if I can,
Mm.
I show you some deep side of it. So this is a services section that every Windows machine have.
Mm.
So if you go to service section, you'll see something running for you. So that's SQL Server. So as you can see, SQL Server, this is all running right now.
Yeah.
These are all the
Mm.
services that actually runs the database for you. And
Mm.
as you can see, Serial Express is also running. So
Mm.
because I want to connect to this server, this has to be running somewhere.
Mm.
This is more on a deeper side, but it gives you an insight as what actually I'm connecting to. So there's a
Mm.
process running with this
So,
service and it's
yeah.
running somewhere. Now what
Mm.
I do is I just want to connect to this database. So as you can see, the name is also here, SQL Express.
Mm.
And I'll be connected to that service that's running on Windows right now. So I'll just
Mm.
connect because it's on my same machine, so it will work on Windows authentication. If I
Mm.
am connected to some other machine, then I have to put username password.
Mm.
But because right now I'm on my same machine, so this thing is gonna work. Windows
Yeah.
authentication. So
Mm.
I'll just connect. So this is the basic view. We have databases, security. So like SQL Server is altogether a whole new zone. If you want to work on deep on a backend thing, then you have to go through these security, server objects, and whatnot. But
Mm.
because we are mainly focusing on, at the very basic level at the tables and structure side, so
Mm.
we'll be focusing on databases mostly.
Mm.
So I'll start first with, so I'll whatever I show you right now, everything will be query driven because
Ah.
that's how you're gonna learn. And like you
Yes.
can do the same thing by clicking,
Mm.
but I'll try to show you like everything is via
Mm.
query so that you can practice. That helps you a lot to understand
Mm.
concepts. So first, let's create a database. This is the query for creating database. We can create like test, and you can just select it. So like I can select it, and either you can do execute or you can
Mm.
press F5.
Mm.
Both way it works.
Yeah.
So this is completed. Test is created. Now as soon as this thing is done, you can see if you reload this, you'll see a test database here.
Mm.
So this database is all yours to work now. You can work
Mm.
with the database. Also, now as you can see right now, I'm at this master level. You see this?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
whatever query I'm running right now, it'll be run
Mm.
on the master database, not in my
Master.
test database.
Mm.
So either I click on this and select my
Okay.
test database,
Test.
otherwise all the tables will be created the wrong database.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really important to change
Mm.
the thing where you want to run. So now this thing is done, create database. And Go basically helps you to break the section. So as you can see, if I start writing now,
Mm.
so the Go basically breaks the whole thing.
Mm.
So I'll show you. So like first let's create a table now. So this is a create table statement. And
Mm.
as I start writing these queries, I'll explain you those things that I'm talking like the structures and variables and all.
Mm.
So application that we want is a phone book application. So what we will be focusing on that we will want one user table.
Mm.
So we have a user data table. It will have user ID, ID of a user,
Mm.
and username.
Mm.
And we have some other extra variables that I'll explain to you right now. And
Mm.
every user has a corresponding, a phone book connection. So we can
Mm.
have like a user phone book table, which will
Mm.
have a use like a record, and it will have the user and corresponding contact ID. Every user has a corresponding like Alice has a three different users like Bob, Michelle, Michael.
Mm.
That'll be
Oh,
in
one
his
second. 1 second, Ramya.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a two table user data
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the
So
phone book.
yeah, we'll be
Phone.
focusing on this only, and this is
Mm.
something that you will be doing as a homework.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mm.
I'll try to
Mm.
explain everything using this,
Mm.
but then eventually phone book has to have some kind of phone books like a context inside a phone book, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Got it.
all the users will be here, but then you
Mm.
will have to somehow connect this user and user using a
Mm.
record and using this
Mm.
phone book. So I'll
Yeah.
be explaining that, but you'll try to see that there'll be two tables right now.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
I'll explain everything on basis of this table, but
Mm.
then this is like expandable to this table. So you will
Mm.
have 2 days to
Mm.
work around on this.
Mm. Yeah.
So let's try to create this table first. So I want to create the user data table,
Mm.
right? And there's a syntax. That's how you design the first table. Then I have to first add the row, like first column. So I'll create user ID
Okay.
and I want it to be int because
Mm.
this is the ID column, right?
Primary key, no?
Yeah, and now, yeah, it's again same. Yeah, that's a
Mm,
very good thing because you know
mm,
you'll get this thing pretty fast. So
mm,
because I want this to be a unique column, I want
mm,
this to be a identification key.
mm,
I want to identify each row using this key, and this has to be unique. So I'll
mm,
just set it primary key.
mm.
If I don't want it to be a primary key, then I can also set it to be unique. It works the same way.
Oh, okay.
It will still create a unique rows, but then this is still not a identification key.
Mm,
Like
mm,
using this key, my records won't be sorted. It's just
mm,
a unique thing. I'm putting constraint on it that it just be a unique thing.
mm,
But because I want to identify rows, because I want to put this as a where clause somewhere, I
mm,
want it to be a primary key. Now next thing is I want it to be auto incrementing. I don't want to
mm,
add a new
mm.
record every
Yeah,
time. So
yeah.
I will just set it identity
21,
1
1.
comma 1. So that's like a
Mm,
basic standard of how do you create primary auto
mm.
incrementing key. Then I'll set username, which is because I want it to be string,
String.
and so I'll say
Where?
varchar 200.
Yeah.
Now the next three things is like pretty standard that how it works in the industry.
Mm,
Nobody creates like a two column. Everybody has this kind of standard, like
mm,
what time it was created, what time it was modified,
mm,
and is it even active record or not. So
mm,
these are like the standard columns. So I'll just add it and I'll show you how it works. So I want to add a created on so that what time it was created. I'll
mm,
set it to be date time. But
mm,
there's something I will do. I'll add default constraint with a get date. What it
mm,
does is every time I want to push a new record, I want provide a created on date.
mm.
I'll just pass these two records, even not just this record, and automatically it will take a get date of current system
Yeah,
and put it
yeah.
in this column.
Yeah, got
So this
it.
is like a pretty standard, way of
Mm,
creating the record in the
mm.
in the industry side.
So all the tables, these two information will be there, correct? These
Yeah,
two field.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So generally it happens because see
Mm.
the thing is if I'm creating a record and I'm modifying this, somebody needs to have a track on it. And
Got
if
it.
you
Yeah.
don't add these
Mm,
columns, then you will never know which is the record which was updated. And last is the is active, which is a
mm,
bit. This is
mm,
basically to make the record eligible or that this record is correct. Or if I want to hide the record, generally we don't do a hard delete
mm,
because we lose that data. So we generally set this is active to 0. Then
mm,
eventually all the records are not shown on the UI, but they are
mm,
still in the database.
mm,
So that's like a pretty standard key.
mm,
So if I just do this and press F5, so I would have created a table. And if I just go here, I should be able to see that table here.
mm,
So that means I'm in the right database. I'm able to
mm.
create the table.
Yeah.
Now the first basic query, is to select
Select star from
from the table.
user
So
user data.
user data. So that's like a
Mm,
and now the table is empty. So
mm,
let's because you already get these concepts. So I'll be going pretty fast
mm,
because you already know this. So let's just
mm.
insert new record.
Insert into field name.
Yeah.
I
Now
use table name.
yeah.
Yeah. Table
So now
name.
if I do this insert
Mm,
user data values, you'll see a problem here that
mm,
I don't want to enter user ID because that's auto incrementing. I just want to add a username. I just
mm.
want to
Got
add
it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Alice, right?
Mm. Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
run this, it'll set a problem to you. It'll say that
Mm,
your column name is not matching because
mm,
it's still saying that you need to enter 5 column names
mm,
because you
mm,
have made it for 5 columns. So in order to avoid that,
mm,
I'll mention specifically that I
mm.
just want to enter username.
Username. Yeah.
Then this query can work, and this can still work because see, this all these records have it like a default value to them.
Mm,
So I don't have to really pass it. That's the power of using a default constraint.
mm,
You don't have to provide it that it will take directly automatically what it wants. So if I just add this record now, you'll see it runs. And if I select it,
mm,
these records are pre-filled now.
mm,
And this is also pre-filled because it's auto incrementing and this is basically taking current time. So
mm,
that's why these columns are important because it tells you that this is a record which was added at that time. And when
mm.
I'm updating it, then I can just modify it and not change this particular column.
Yeah.
So that helps you to keep a track of how data is created and works.
Mm, mm,
Similarly, I can even add multiple records. So Alice was the one. I'll just add Bob,
mm,
comma. So this is the syntax of adding multiple records one time. Alice, Bob, Michael, you know, um,
mm.
Michelle,
Mish-
anything like it
Mm,
just I'm just adding records. But this is the way of
mm,
adding multiple records one time. Now
mm,
3 records have been added, and I can see those 4 records. So this is the basic user data table that we want to work upon.
mm,
Now I'll just show you like quickly show you. So this is the first part of our outline.
mm,
So this is the setup I've told you. Then I'll told you that this is the user data and table that we'll have. So now how is this connection is going to work is, now you can see in user data there's a one user ID one with the name Alice. There's a two with name Bob. There's a three with name Michael. Now if Alice has a phone book of Bob and Michael, then in user phone book, the record ID, I'll add first record. So you can think of it as it is of auto incrementing. And
Yeah.
user ID will be the Alice because I want to add Alice record. And contact ID will be 2 because I want to add Bob as a phone book inside Alice. So you get how this table is going to work, the phone book. Similarly, I will have one more record. I'll have record ID 2. Again with same user ID. Now I will have add 3 now because Alice has a Bob and Michael inside his like her phone book. So that's
Okay.
how this table is going to work. It's just a mapping of those IDs that I've entered here.
Mm.
So here you can also use the concept of foreign key because these keys are already present in this table.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then later on you have to do join to get the actual name because this table doesn't have the name, it just has the IDs connections. This is something that I will like later on cover also, but this is something that I want you to try later on. So I'll just explain it in your homework and you can try it out and we can just discuss it on Monday.
Yeah.
But this is like a pretty very nice way of going through the entire application on your own. So that's the idea of this application. So we have like, let's try to go through these. So we have covered DDL queries. So DDL basically means, the kind of queries that doesn't really do any kind of data manipulation. It's just data language queries. So as you can see, create, insert is not actually changing anything. It's just adding a new record. So these are called DDL queries. Now we'll go to DML. So data manipulation queries. So these will be something which are actually changing the data inside. So we have already seen select. This is one of the DML query.
Yeah.
Now we'll see update. So update is a pretty decent syntax. We
Update
update,
table
update,
user
user data.
data.
Then
Yeah.
we set, maybe I want to change a username Alice to something else. So I say username is equal to Alice1. Now problem is with this query is it will set entire username to 1, like all
So
the records to 1. So
where
we need to,
condition
we need to
where
provide a where condition. User ID
is
is
ready.
1 because I want to update for Alice only. So that's the query. And if I run this, it's gonna update and I'll just see it's just like a decent update query. Now that's why I made this query a primary key because I want this ID to identify a row uniquely. That's very important. If you create a unique key, it doesn't mean that it's gonna identify that row uniquely. If you're identifying a primary key, it has to be unique and it has to be like one record. It has to identify one record, not more than one record. So if you can see if where ID is here not unique, then it can match multiple records, then all the records will be updated with Alice1, which is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a primary key has to identify a row uniquely. That's like the definition of primary key. Now we can similarly use delete.
Delete user data.
User data.
User data.
Sorry.
Delete from user data.
Now where is very important because otherwise it'll delete all the records.
Right. Yeah.
So user ID.
Username.
If you use username, it can still work, but because my identification is ID, so my all the where clause should be within ID.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll cause weird effects. Because I'm not see, as you can see, username is not a unique key. So Alice could be multiple times with different IDs.
Right.
So if I use where clause username Alice, then it will delete all the Alice records, which is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Now the important concept that I'm going to cover is like nobody uses a query kind of thing. Everybody uses a stored procedure, like a function thing in SQL Server, so which is
Yeah.
pretty important because if you go to industry, definitely not going to write a queries again and again. You'll write a function which will execute on your behalf.
Yeah.
So the syntax of that is
Create procedure. Procedure name.
get all users because I just want to
users.
get all users
Yeah.
as and just
select a star from
user ID
data.
and username from user data and go.
Go.
So as you can see, go basically breaks the statement. So now I can just do this. So go basically helps us to create a new section altogether.
Okay.
So now if I run this, so this procedure is created and I can execute it. Be simple. like it just
execute.
execute
Mm.
get all users. So now I'm getting the users. The
Mm.
power of this is I'll show you on the console application where I can execute a stored procedure via C Sharp. So that
Mm.
helps, to actually not write a SQL query inside a C Sharp application. That's why
Mm.
people prefer, stored procedure over anything else. I'll also create a stored procedure with a particular, a
Mm.
particular variable. So get user. This time I'll create um, at the rate user ID as wait.
Mm. Int.
Yeah, I want to add like a
Mm.
int kind of
Mm.
thing.
Then as select.
Now
Uh,
select because I'm providing a user ID here. So I'll
mm.
just select user ID, username from same table
From select.
where
Mm.
user ID is user provided. The syntax is you have to provide an at the rate because that's a variable you're defining from outside and provide
Mm.
the type of the variable that's going to come to this function.
Mm.
And that's it. So I've
Cool.
created a stored procedure with a variable now. And
Mm.
then when I execute it, I have to provide this variable, otherwise the function will fail.
Yeah.
So if I run this,
Sec-
it's gonna say that you need to
Mm.
provide the user ID parameter, right? So if
Mm.
I press 1, it's gonna get me record of Alice only. So this is the way
Mm.
by which we create stored procedure of of types. And
Mm.
that's the only two things that's needed for stored procedure. You can create now anything, any kind of query
Mm.
using these types, and it can still work. The,
Mm.
the, 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 the next level of this is to have a dynamic query where I provide variables and I use some kind of dynamic statement to create a whole query dynamically using a string variable.
Mm.
So that's like a
Yeah.
very at a very deep level, but then
Mm.
that's how the thing works. You still
Mm.
have a stored procedure somewhere that's running on behalf of you.
Mm. Mm.
So now if I just see it where I see the stored procedure is basically if you go to programmability and then stored procedure, you'll see your stored procedures here.
Yeah. Get all
So
user. Get user. Yeah.
and you can like all this thing that I'm doing right now, it can easily be created by right click, create stored
Mm.
procedure. This provides a pretty nice like modified stored procedures. It provides a statement,
Mm.
but it's good to know the queries because then only you can go through and
Mm.
run from C sharp.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like this
Mm.
is enough for us to
Mm.
poke around using C sharp. So
Mm.
I'll now move to this section. So
Mm.
we have covered this select some stored procedures.
Mm.
Now let's try to connect this with console application using AD.NET Framework.
Mm.
So as a thing, I'll just create open Visual 2019,
Mm.
and we'll create a new console application.
Mm.
Yeah. So it provides us several ways. As you can see, clone repository is on the top. This is the Git thing that I'm going to
Mm.
talk about later on.
Mm. Mm.
So if you have a code somewhere, you can just click on this and just put a URL and it will download that code from GitHub to on your PC.
Okay.
But we'll
Mm.
be looking at this later on. So we'll just create
Mm.
a new project right now.
Mm.
Now, if you create a new project and if you've installed the console part, then you will be seeing the console, application template already up
Mm.
created for you. So you
Mm.
can just choose the template and work. So right now, as you can see, I have installed the whole console.NET Framework part also. So it is providing me a .NET Core thing.
Mm.
So you have to choose .NET Framework as a thing that you have to create,
Yeah.
not .NET Core, because that's a different thing altogether. And you want to work on C Sharp, not VB or F Sharp.
Mm. Mm.
So that's something you will start with.
Mm.
The next thing is basically where it's gonna be,
Mm.
created. So I'll just create as a phone book console app,
Mm.
and I'm using the latest framework, so which is nice because it will have all the features with me.
Mm.
I can switch to multiple frameworks, but there's no point, learning on a like a
Hold
old
on. Yeah.
framework. So there's no
Yeah.
one. So I'll just create
Mm.
this application, and it'll be created with like a very basic skeleton. That's why I want to first start with console application because if you create a UI initially, you'll see a lot of files created for you,
Mm.
and it becomes difficult to understand how the structure is created. So if you
Mm.
get this, then you will be easier to
Mm.
understand the next structure.
Got it. Yeah.
So it is created now. So you see the files are just like almost nil.
Mm.
Just program and app config, two things, and you have static static void
Mm.
main and this whole reference thing. We'll be
Mm.
focusing on reference soon, not right
Mm.
now, and we'll
Mm.
definitely go to properties. but as of now, we'll just focus on a basic application. So every time I start or execute a console application, it goes through a static void main.
Mm.
Even for a UI thing, you'll see this static void main somewhere happening.
Mm.
This is something which is never gone. Every time a thread is executed, it goes through this function first, then it goes through multiple parts of the function.
Yeah.
So it will still be the same in the UI, but I'll show you where it's hidden somewhere, which is not available to the user to change or do something about it.
Mm.
So I'll start this application and I'll show you. So console is the way to write something on the console on a black screen. So there's a class. And as you can see, if I put dot here, you see multiple functions shown to you
Mm.
automatically,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So what's happening is console is a static class.
Mm.
I don't have to create an object for console to get these functions.
Mm.
I
Mm.
can just put dot and I can get these functions
Yeah.
automatically. So that's
Yeah.
a static class. If it
Mm.
has been a normal, a different object-oriented class, then I have to do this obj
Mm.
new
Mm.
console.
Mm.
This class doesn't really allow you to create a constructor because this doesn't, you don't require it. Then after
Mm.
this, I have to do obj dot, call that
Mm.
function.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But because this class is static, so I can
Mm.
just directly go on class and call functions. That's the
Mm.
concept of static and dynamic classes in the C sharp. I'll
Mm.
I'll create both classes and
Dynamic, we should create an object, correct?
yeah, we have to.
Mm.
You
Mm.
can't really, you have to create a constructor of this. You have to call constructor. You have to
Mm.
get the object in different. Then only you can call the functions.
Mm.
The class is static. What happens is every time I'm using this, there's only one object. This automatic created for you, and that is available for all of us.
Mm.
So there's no individual object for every class. There's just one object, and you just go through that. And that
Mm.
object is itself class. So there's no constructor and all in static
Mm.
classes. That's the
Mm.
static dynamic object, concept of C
Mm.
sharp classes.
Mm.
Now I'll use this function. I'll just write phone book app. You'll see a problem here. If I run this, you'll, you'll see something wrong going on. It's
Mm.
gonna start.
We need to give a read line, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Mm.
gonna
Mm.
start. It's gonna
Mm.
run. Then it's gonna go back like
Mm.
instantly. It won't wait for you. The
Mm.
problem the problem is that like the first build of application of every application is gonna be slow
Mm.
because it has to run through all the builds and all.
Mm.
But after first build, it'll be easier to debug again and again because that thing is now understanding. As you can see, it's gone
Mm.
because
Mm.
why, like everybody knows why they need read line, but the real reason why you need read line is it
Mm.
goes to static void main and nothing stops this thread.
Mm.
It just
Mm.
goes to this line, goes to this line, and goes back.
Mm.
What read line is doing, basically, I'm stopping this thread to wait for my enter. That's
Mm.
that's just what read line is doing. As soon as I
Mm.
press an enter, it goes from this to this line and goes back.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
got
that's
you.
the real reason
Mm.
why read line
Mm.
has to be there. Otherwise, the
Mm.
thread just comes to this static void main, read this line, and bam, goes outside.
Mm.
That's the
Mm.
problem.
Mm.
Now, as you can see, by default, I'm having multiple references here.
Mm.
If you're creating a console app, even for a basic application, you will have a system somewhere.
Mm.
Some kind of reference is given already to you because I choose a template altogether. If I create a blank template, I might not be having these references.
Mm.
But because I've said I want a console application, so Visual Studio knows that which libraries you need to actually
Mm.
work on the console application. So therefore, I don't have to add any kind of reference. But
Mm.
what if I want to work on something else, then I have to add references. So we'll be looking at class library later on because
Mm.
that's how the code is modularized.
Mm.
As of now, we don't have to worry anything about references. We just know that everything is here given to us, so we can code.
Mm.
So we know everything right now that everything is given to us. Now the first thing, because we will be working at AD.NET framework entirely because we want to deal with SQL Server.
Mm.
And the way to SQL Server is AD.NET framework, which is like provided to .NET framework
Mm.
inside the system.data.
Mm.
This is the library, which is AD.NET thing.
Mm.
So everything, every way by which I want to work with SQL Server, I have inside this library.
Mm.
I can just use this and connect and do everything I want to do. So first thing that I want to do is to connect with SQL Server. That's like first thing that I want to open a connection, and then I can fetch tables and get records.
Mm.
So there are multiple ways to do it, but like a pretty neat shortcut way, because the thing is the SQL Server is running on some with connection string somewhere,
Mm. Mm.
and it's very difficult to fetch that connection string. You don't have to create on your own, like you don't have to write the whole thing altogether.
Mm.
So the shortcut of that is you can just go to console application
Mm.
and you can just go to server explorer. If you go there, you can
Mm.
add running server on your Visual Studio directly.
Okay.
So that way it makes things easier for you. So like right now, as you can see, I have Azure connection happening somewhere,
Hmm.
which we'll won't be looking as of now, but there's a way to connect data connections also. So just put a connect to database here. It's going to open a pop-up for you,
Hmm.
and you can just select your server. This server has to be again running. So in order to get something in the list, your SQL server has to be running in your services. If it's stopped, then you won't get any, drop
Hmm.
here. You won't see anything
Yeah.
here.
Hmm.
So I know I want to work on Express, so I'll choose Express. I know Windows authentication is going to work, so that's
Hmm.
fine. And now if I click, it will automatically give me a database list. So
Hmm.
as you can see, connection is
Yes.
established.
Hmm.
So I want to work on test, and I can even click on test connection. It's going to say that connection is successful.
Hmm.
I can just click OK. So everything that I'm doing in SSMS,
Hmm.
I can do in Visual Studio also.
Hmm.
Everything, because it's connected now. So I can
Okay.
just click and get all tables, all stored procedures. You see, so it's a very decent view of everything.
Hmm.
But generally people don't prefer it because SSMS is a better tool to actually work on database. C# is a tool like Visual Studio tool to work on C# code.
Hmm.
But just to get that connection string faster, we just do that. And now
Hmm.
what you can see, if you click here, you'll see a connection string automatically here. You can just copy that and put in a string object, con string,
Hmm.
and you'll see
Yeah. Gosh.
now you don't even write that thing. That's like
Hmm.
a pretty neat shortcut to get everything connected. So that's like otherwise I have to remember the syntax and remember which to connect and do have to write the whole integrate security part.
Hmm.
Now it's all everything done for me.
Yeah.
Now you'll see a problem here that this thing is using this kind of exclamation which string doesn't really skip.
Hmm.
So
Double
there are,
slash.
yeah, there you either you do this,
Hmm.
or there's a very neat way to do it is to use a verbatim string.
Hmm.
So this
Okay.
what at the rate does is it automatically goes inside these strings and
Hmm.
provide those backspaces for you.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
this concept is called verbatim string. I'll just write it down here.
Hmm.
Verbatim string. Maybe spelling is different, but yeah,
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
like.
Hmm.
So this at the rate helps you to provide these strings here, and then
Hmm.
you can use it for connection. Now I want to connect, so I want to use that system data library. And now as you can see, there are references here to names all those libraries, right? You
Hmm.
can't see any reference to system data here, right?
Hmm.
Now if
Yeah.
I start with SQL connection, you
Hmm.
won't be seeing any SQL connection. As you can see,
Hmm.
Visual Studio is very smart
Hmm.
because it knows you don't have that reference. I
Hmm.
shouldn't really show that class here, but because it knows that you're talking about this and this is inside your reference somewhere, it
Hmm.
knows that you can use these references to connect the connection.
Hmm.
So if I just enter it, it automatically adds that using there.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's like a helper thing that Visual Studio provide to you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Otherwise, there's also one more way. If I just remove this, so it will give me error now because there's no
Hmm.
reference here. So you can
Yeah.
just go to your cursor here and put control dot, or
Hmm.
you can click here
Hmm.
or either do a control
Hmm.
and dot.
Hmm.
If you do that,
Yeah.
automatically opens a pop-up for you
Hmm.
to provide a solution for this error.
Hmm.
You can just click
Yeah.
and again that's added.
Hmm.
So nobody really writes that using thing.
Hmm.
We just
Hmm.
use this kind of thing.
Hmm.
So now I create a connection object.
Hmm.
And if you see now there's more helpers for you in Visual Studio. So now as you can see there's 1 by 3 happening somewhere, right? So
Hmm.
what it's suggesting you if it put an arrow, put like use up arrow, down arrow, it will give you multiple ways by which I can initialize this function.
Okay.
So I can
Hmm.
provide a string. I can provide a string with some kind of credentials. So this is something if you want to use a Windows maybe a SQL Server authentication.
Hmm.
But because we don't have any credential problem, so we will be using this thing.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
like a helper. And what's happening here is, as you can see, the SQL connection. I have to create a new SQL connection. So this is not a static class anymore.
Hmm.
This is like a dynamic object thing. Because every
Yeah.
SQL connection can have like a different multiple. You can have a multiple connections happening, right? Creating
Hmm.
a single class for that will be wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
So therefore, it has this dynamic object concept. Now,
Hmm.
because I know there's an
Hmm.
overload,
Hmm.
there are multiple ways to initialize this function, so I'll be using this. So
Hmm.
I don't have to really, tell the function to use this kind of function. I just have to provide right parameter.
Hmm.
Now it automatically knows that I have to use second function.
Hmm.
This is the one of the OOPS concept called function overloading
Okay.
because I'm using same function and I'm overloading with some other parameter.
Hmm.
So that's called function overloading for you. I'll create a function for you to show this. So now what we'll do is we'll just do connection open, and we'll say console dot write line, say connection, and let's run this. It should show us connection opened in the console. It's running. The connections has been opened. So see, using that connection by using Server Explorer, I've created a flawless connection string. It will never break because I've got it from the SQL Server, Visual Studio. So that's like a neat trick to get the connection string from SQL Server. Now the problem with this thing is if
Yeah.
something breaks here, so the whole application goes down. So I'll show you. I'll just put a wrong connection string now. And the control goes from my side. It's gonna try some time. It won't like eventually break it. It'll keep on trying like few 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and then eventually it's gonna break apart because I've tried multiple times and your connection is not established. So as you can see, now it's breaking. This whole application is now freeze, and it's gonna point at that particular line that something happened, an unidentified exception has been occurred because I'm not able to connect using that
Yeah.
connection string to server. The problem with this that exception is not handled here. I'm not handling this exception here. I'm just not doing anything about it. That if exception happens, then my whole application is gonna crash. So that's a very bad way to
Yeah.
deal with exception. So we have to do some kind of exception handling, which is again a concept of C#. So what we do is, because we know this function is something which can break somewhere, so I'll put try catch. So that's like a very neat and decent way to handle an exception. So what's going to happen now is as soon as exception occurred in this block, somewhere something breaks, it's gonna go down to this catch exception before like actually throwing like breaking the whole application. And it's gonna give me a chance to you can handle this exception somewhere here. So now what I can do is I can just write console write line ex.toString. Oh, you'll see a difference in the application now. My application won't break, but it will give me an exception on this console screen. Because what I've done is I've write line the whole exception by converting it to a string so that you can write it down here. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
If this thing breaks, then my whole application stopped. Now it won't
Yes.
happen. See, exception is written on my black screen. My application is not stopped. Nothing is stopping as a user. Nothing is stopping me to like my whole application is not crashed now. It's saying the same thing. A network instance exception has occurred because maybe your server is not located at that instance. But that's a way of handling an exception in C#.
Yeah. Got it.
That's the concept of exceptional handling. Now what happens is if connection is opened, somebody needs to close it also. So I have to do connection close because I know I just have to open it and close it. Or I can do something neat, which is finally. What finally does is if exception occurred somewhere or not occurred, it's gonna always call this block, no matter what happens with your upper block. So I know that if exception is occurring or not occurring, either way I have to try closing the connection. So this is the finally block. This will always execute no matter what. So this is the idea of if you look at the exception handling of C#, they will always say it happens in a try, catch, and finally thing. That's the whole exception handling process. And like this basically wraps up your entire exception handling. If you want to have exception handling, this is how it's done everywhere. There's
Okay.
nothing more than it's just you have to try that thing, you have to catch it, do something about it, or you have to do like release something which has to be released every time. This basically helps me to write a redundant code. So if I'm not using finally, I would have to write like this con close. I have to also write here con close. So you see a repetition of code is happening now.
Yes. Yeah.
This can be avoided by writing this thing entirely in finally.
Finally. Okay.
So that's how the finally blocks helps us to write a better code.
Mm.
This was the connection to SQL Server. Now what we'll do is we'll fetch, run a query. So we run a query of select using C#. So in order to do that, we already have open a connection. We'll open it again because we're closing it. So we'll use something called
SQL command.
SQL command,
SQL command. SQL.
new SQL command, and you'll see some again multiple constructor here.
Mm.
You see, it's helpful
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
exactly what this function is wanting. So okay, see, it wants a command text and want a SQL connection. This is something we'll want to use. So we will want to put in a query. So we'll see a string SQL query, and I'll just write select star from
User data.
user data.
That.
And I'll put this because I know this constructor is like this. See, it helps me to, so it says that you have to write a command text, or you can put a command text and connection together, because if I do use this one, I have to put connection again later on. So why not put it in one go? So I'll just put SQL query, and because I have to provide the what connection you're gonna use, and so connection that I've created on top. I've created con here. So now this guy knows everything. It has to open this connection. It has to go just run this query, get the data. So because this command really doesn't open the connection, so I have to open it for him. So I'll put open. Then I'll say SQL data reader. That's the way to read the data from this command. And I'll say command dot execute reader. Now you'll see a neat thing here. If I seek execute reader, I can know what output is gonna give. It says I want to give output of SQL data reader. That's a helper for you in Visual Studio. So it knows that I will execute this command for you, but then I'll give you a SQL data reader. So you have to store it in SQL data reader only. So that's the way by which these functions provide you the output that they will give. So it says that I want SQL data reader. If I execute this query, then there's again SQL data reader. If I execute this query, then it's returning me int now. So it won't really go inside a SQL data. Then I have to put it inside int. So that's the way to know what this function is doing and what.
Yeah.
So that's like a helper for you in Visual Studio. Because and you see there's a star here. This again helps you that because you have already created data in the beginning, it knows that this is the function that you would like to use. Because based on your context, this fits perfectly, and this actually fits perfectly. So this is something that I want to use. Now, whatever I'm doing right now here, this is called the online mode of AD.NET. So what online mode means is I'm actually creating a connection, I'm reading it, then I'm closing it. I'm not downloading data into my C# application. I'm not storing it somewhere. It's online. It's like reading it and showing it. I'm not doing anything about that data. So that's called the online mode.
Okay.
And there's also an offline mode, and generally people never use online mode. I don't see any way like by which online mode is helpful, because we have to do something at C# level with the data. We can't really throw it out directly on the UI side. We have to do some kind of manipulation there. So the best way to do is to get the data, download on C# and then do manipulation.
That is that is called a online
That is called offline mode. Offline, because
mode.
I'm able to get data on my C# application, then I'm doing some kind of processing. And the online mode is basically that key, I'm getting data, but I'm just connecting it, getting data, not doing anything. So that's offline mode. And the way it works is pretty. It's not very neat. So like
Usually
now,
offline is the best method to.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it provides me a data table kind of thing, which I'll show you, which is really helpful. And it's very fast. I don't have to even write this whole mess here. It's like it's very neat. So now if I want to read, I have to read the data using a while loop. So I'll just save your time, because it's like um so it's like you have to go through the whole while loop again and again. So it's like reader dot read. As you can see, this looks bad. The whole thing looks bad. I have to run through a while loop. Then every time a reader give me some kind of output, I have to do a console write line reader dot get value. Then I have to write 0. Then maybe I can just put a space for getting the first value, because it's star, so it's going to give me one by one all the values. So reader dot get value 1. So if I run this, so as this thing is complete, then I can just do a connection close, which is important, because otherwise the connection will be dangling there and server will behave weirdly. It's important to do that after you've done your job. So I don't have to do this again, so I can just comment this out. The shortcut of doing this whole thing is Control K C. That's
So
like a shortcut. So
can you
you can
just
just
comment it that one, write it?
Yeah.
Control.
So I maybe can put in chat. So it's control plus K plus C.
Mm.
And if you want to uncomment it, then you can just reselect it again.
Mm.
Control K U. Control plus K plus U for uncomment. It's pretty fast and it's pretty neat.
Mm.
Just helps you out, commit the right block and comment the unblind block. So
Mm.
I don't want to run it to run, so I can do that. I still need to connect a SQL connection, so I'll just open that and let's run this. And it's getting the record. Alice, Bob, Michael. This is what you want, like the three record database. But the
Yeah.
problem again, this is I've read it. You see, I've read it and I'm not able to do a very good manipulation here.
Mm.
So that's a SQL online mode.
Mm.
Now let's look at the offline mode. Offline mode is pretty nice and it's like widely used. That's how it used everywhere. So
Mm.
for offline mode, we use SQL data adapter
Mm.
class and we create a new adapter, new SQL adapter. And again, it has some several,
Yeah.
function
Yes.
overloads. So I want to use a query kind of thing. So I'll just part as you can see, command text connection, same kind of a concept of command. So I can
Mm.
just provide this SQL query and I'll say, use
Oh,
this connection.
good connection. Yeah.
I have to still open the connection because connection has to be opened anyway. Either way,
Mm.
like it
Mm.
usually can't work without opening connection. But
Okay.
yeah, but I don't have to go through this whole reader thing.
Mm.
Now what I can do is because I am using
Data
a
table.
offline mode, so I'll use a data table of C sharp
Mm.
with new data table, and I'll just say that whenever like you run this query, so adapter fill neat, just fill my table, fill my that
Mm.
data from the query to
Mm.
my this data table, and that's it.
Mm.
You see how
Yeah.
clean is this is now. Now if
Mm.
I just put a breakpoint here, this is a very nice thing to debug code. I put a
Mm.
breakpoint, and if I run this, it's gonna print that out and it's gonna stop here because and now I can look at that particular thing. You see,
Mm.
if I hover, I can see what's happening at this variable. If I click
Yeah.
on
Mm.
this, you'll see the whole table presented to you in the
Mm.
tablet form. You see,
Ah, okay.
so you can
Mm.
look. Oh, this is the variable that I'm getting now. So this is a
Mm.
very decent way of doing a debugging inside a Visual Studio. So
Mm.
that's like you can either see the table and see the whole data is downloaded to your C sharp application now. Yeah,
Mm.
entire table is in this variable now. So this is called offline mode
Mm.
because I'm fetching the data right now. Now now imagine if your table is like of thousand and hundred and thousand millions,
Mm.
then your data you can't really download it on C sharp.
Mm.
So then in that case you need to have very nice where clauses which gives you like a paging kind of thing or get only
Mm.
100 records at beginning. Then you
Ah.
next 100 records.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
either way, you have if once the data is at my C sharp side, then only I can do some kind of manipulation here.
Mm.
So that's why nobody really uses the online mode. We actually work at offline mode,
Ah.
and even
Mm.
entity framework, which automate this process, also uses this at a backend somewhere to work at the offline mode.
Mm. This is the
Now,
entity. This is the entity framework.
no, no, this is not entity framework. In entity framework, we won't be even writing this new SQL command anywhere.
Mm.
We
Mm.
just have to create a class objects and everything will pre-filled for us.
Mm.
So that's like a pretty, very abstracted way of
Yeah.
doing things.
Is there
That
any chance to get a error to debug in that type of cases? I mean,
uh,
compared to this type, more chance to get.
yeah. So entity framework, if errors are happening at entity framework levels, difficult to debug
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
because something is hidden somewhere from you and it's happening at deep down level.
Mm.
So therefore, people generally prefer to have their own DAL layer. So this is the
Mm.
kind of DAL layer, and then
Mm.
they execute things on their own
Ah. Ha, ha.
rather than
Mm.
throwing everything to entity framework. But some
Mm.
people prefer entity framework because if you write it in a very right way,
Mm.
then it's
Mm.
flawless.
Mm.
It'll never break. And if it's breaking, then
Mm.
there's something at fault here somewhere. Then you have to fix it.
So
So there are
most of the companies, which way usually.
it's like a deal which like managers have to think about. If they
Mm.
want a more control on a
Mm.
DAL side, so they'll
Mm.
go with their own coding.
Mm.
If they
Mm.
want to throw everything on Microsoft, then they
Mm.
just go to Entity Framework.
Mm. Mm.
It's
Mm.
like a choice that you have to think when you're designing an application,
Mm.
but
Mm.
it's
Mm.
better to know both.
Mm. Mm.
That's why I will go through the entity framework because it's very neat. So like even I don't have to even write all these things. I have to just create a class object and I know it's going to be pre-filled when I run this application. So it's like a very decent way of doing coding because don't have to worry anything about backend anymore. So the guys who just care about middleware, they will be using entity framework because they don't want to write any SQL query or something anywhere. But this is a start. This is from there you'll get the idea, then you'll able to get entity framework. So that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Now I'm still writing a SQL query in C Sharp, which is not a standard like a recommended way. This is not a good thing to write a SQL query inside a C Sharp. So therefore we have to like go through a stored procedure approach. That's why I wrote stored procedures from the beginning. And we will be now focusing on offline mode only because that's like important. That's like the way. So there is no point in learning on online modes. So now what I'll do is I'll just create a SQL data adapter again. But this time I'm gonna pass a stored procedure. Let's say I'll create a new SQL data adapter. And this time what I'll say is the command text has to be just the stored procedure.
Yeah.
Or what I can do is I can just create an adapter right now. I'll pre-fill it with SQL connection later on, and I create a SQL command. A SQL command object, command, new SQL command. It has a command text connection automatically. So I'll just say get all users, that my function name and connection. Then command dot, and that's it because this function doesn't really take any parameters. So all I have to do is just provide this command text to know that this is now not a SQL query, but actually a stored procedure.
Yeah.
I have to tell that the command dot
dot
command type is SQL command dot
stored procedure.
command type, and you can see what it's taking as command type. So it's taking a command type dot
stored procedure.
Now that's it because I don't have to provide any kind of parameter, so I have to don't to worry about that. And I can still use the same data table again. So if I just avoid this filling part, I'm not even closing connection. So close. I can just say adapter, a new adapter, to just fill. Adapter is still not taking this command somewhere, right? Adapter dot select command, because I have to provide this command somewhere. This is the way how it works. But if you think about it, this command that I've created has no connection with SQL adapter anywhere right now. I have to somehow tell the adapter to use this command. So then I connect this command 2. Now everything is done. Now adapter knows what function to call, whether it's a stored procedure or text. Now it can fill my data table automatically. Adapter.fill and my data. If I run this, we should be seeing like again a similar thing. So if I run this, because this function is created now, so as you can see, it's clean. I'm not using, see, that's the function that I've created, a user ID username. And I'm not at all, doing any kind of SQL query here. So that's why people prefer stored procedures over SQL query. Otherwise, you have to write, a SQL query here, and it becomes very complicated, especially with where you provide where clause, because then you have a string statement or a number inside a string. Then you have to escape it using one and escape. So it becomes very bad.
Yeah.
So that's why people prefer stored procedure, because SQL query is contained as SQL Server level, and I'm just calling those functions now. Now let's try to use a different kind of thing, which is let's not go provide this command here now, and let's create a new command with like a value of stored procedure, because that's important because you have to do this task of updating and deleting records using stored procedure. Then you need to provide values from C#.
Yeah.
Then only you can update it, right? So let's create a new command. This time we will use gets user. It was this thing that you need to remember, because you create this function, you need to remember it. Otherwise, if you don't really remember it, you can just go to Server Explorer here. You can see what source project I've created. You can see get user is here.
Yeah.
That way you can also remember. So this is helpful view, but generally people don't prefer. I can do everything here. I can just click right click. I can open, execute. I can perform all operations using this window. But generally it's better to have a different thing altogether. Now I can provide just connection like the way I'm giving it. This time again I have to tell the command that this is a stored procedure now. Otherwise it's going to take it as a command type. And see, there's a neat way of Visual Studio showing you something. So this is, as you see, there's a like a lightning here. This is a function. You see, this is an overloaded kind of function. As you can see, this is also a function, and this tool, like a wrench, is a kind of enum. So it won't take any value here. It will take some kind of enum thing. So that's that's a sign of using.
That means if it's a fixed type. It's
Yeah,
not changing.
it's like it's gonna take a properties rather than just the integer value. It won't be a function. You can't call this thing. It will take some value which is also predefined to you. So it's like if I use command type. So if you just hover it, you'll see that it's taking a command type kind of object. And this is actually an enum. It's giving you 1, 2, 3, 4 value, nothing more than that. But it has a very standard way of giving it. If I click on it, I can even see. Oh, it's taking 1, 4, 512. But I don't really remember these numbers because I have a very nice way of providing these numbers. I can just open command type dot and I can just use stored procedure. But underlying, I'm just providing a value to it. Therefore, it's a wrench. If this would have been like a function, like I'll show you. So for the adapter fill. So now the thing is, for this user, for this stored procedure, I have to provide some kind of values. That's the neat view that you get. I have to provide a user ID here. So in this command 3 parameters, something that I have to use dot add with value. Like there are two ways you can use it. And you see you look at the sign now. It's like a grid or like a cube. This means it's a function now. It's not going to take a value. It's a function now. So that's like a clue for you that you'll get. Now you see I have multiple functions here. I can use add. Then it takes a SQL parameter as a object, and I can use add with value. It can take a value and an object, like a name and a value. So if I use this is like fastest way to provide it. So I have to provide a variable. So that's add user ID. And value is something that I don't know yet. So I can use like console way to read it from console. So enter user ID console.read line to read it, and then you have to store it into int. And because this read line gives you a string, so I have to convert it into
Into 232.
That's how I'm going to read it to user ID. Now I can just put it here. Now my command is ready. It has stored procedure. It has all the values. If I have to add more value, I can just add a new line like this line, copy this, paste it with that new parameter. So that's how I can add multiple parameters inside the stored procedure.
Yeah.
Now I can use the same adapter that I previously created with the select command. I can provide this command 3 there. And now if I run this, it should be able to fill my data with the way I want it to fill. So let's just run it. It's going to stop at user ID. So I want the record of to Bob. And the data should be given about Bob only. See? So this is working the way it should work. The reason I created this stored procedure, but like my thing is working nice. But so we covered this this SQL Server connection. We covered the fetch record using online mode. Now we covered the same query using offline mode, and obviously we were preferring offline mode, so we have checked all users, particular users. Now the thing is, which is very important, so I'll be taking like 15 more minutes. Like you wanted to GitHub today because it'll be easy for you to then update.
Yeah. Today. Yeah. Just finish the 2 more topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can, because if you are able to see GitHub today only, then you will be able to share codes with me, and I'll be able to share code with you. So I thought maybe doing today will be a nice thing.
Yeah.
So now this is a very important part I'll be focusing on. This is how people write code. Nobody writes code like this. You see, this is very, very, very like out. Everything is out there and everything is inside the static void main. This is not a decent way to write the code. So I'll be talking modularity now, and then we'll be pushing this entire code into GitHub. And I'll make sure that I'll do a installation from beginning. so that you know, and then you can try it on your own, and we'll try to make sure that you are able to push code also. So we can do that parallelly, GitHub thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now I'll just focus on this modular thing.
Mm.
So first thing that I see, which is very bad,
Mm.
is this string is on my, CS side. I don't like it. And this is something that I want people to change automatically depending upon where this application is going,
Mm.
right? So first thing, which is I'm going to use is app config. This is something provides you a way to, provide configuration of your application. So this string, if I provide it into app config, then I can share my application, and now somebody who wants to use my application can just go to app config because he won't be able to see the code, right? He'll be just seeing my exe, and that exe, if he clicks on it, he's going to run that exe on a particular connection string, which is not right for him. What he
Yeah.
wants to change, he can't really change the code. So that's where these configurations comes into picture. So I'll use a connection string thing. There are multiple ways to provide here thing, but for connection string especially, there's a tag connection strings. So I'll use this tag, and I'll add a key and value pair. So key will be the key that I have to fetch. So it'll be my dbcon string, and my connection string is something that I want to use. Now here you can use the whole slash thing. It wanted to escape it. You can just put it like this, and it will still work. But now what I have done is I've made this application configurable. Now I have to use this key somewhere in my C sharp, so I'll go back to my C sharp. This is not nice. So what I'll do is I'll just comment this out. I'll say string con string, and I'll use configuration
Manager.
manager.
Dot.
Now you see manager is not coming.
Mm.
So there's a shortcut here, right? Control dot.
Yeah.
So it's giving me an option to use system configuration.
Mm.
I don't want to
Yeah.
generate this variable. I don't want to generate this type. That's weird. I want to simplify it. So I'll put enter.
Using system.
Yeah, it's gonna put that thing automatically. System configuration.
Mm.
This thing is only possible because I am already referring it here.
Mm.
If imagine I'm not referring it here, then this guy is gonna break down. It's gonna not even provide me a suggestion here to put this thing here. It has to be inside its reference, and then only I can use it. Then configure manager dot connection strings. Then I have to provide my key, which is dbcon string. That's what I did, I think.
Yeah.
Then I have to get this value, so that connection string. It's a very decent, a right way. Maybe I have to like change. Oh, so see, now there's a problem. This problem happening because I'm using a single quote.
Mm.
Single quote means a single character. I have to provide a string, so I have to make it double quote.
Yeah.
That's like a C# standard. Now, if I run this, it should run automatically, and I'll show you why this is like really helpful. What we can do is we can print this data out so that we can stop, using debugger. So it's gonna give me a data row, dr in data dot rows. So that's like a decent way. That's like a way to explore all the rows in the data. And if you are ever confused what to use here, as you can either hover here, which shows data row collection, or you can use something called var. Var is a kind of variable which is runtime decided when the application is running. So anything which you don't know, you can just put it a var. It is something which is decided runtime. So because it knows the SQL command coming, so it's automatically SQL command. As you can see, it's decided right now at the compile time. But something it can't decide it at the compile time. It's going to say that it's a class object.
So what is the if you give a data row, what is?
It's the same thing. If I write data row, then I'm pretty sure about type. But sometimes what happens is you don't know what is coming, right? In that case, you can't really decide a type of that application. So in such application, var is something which can take everything, or it could also be like an object. Object is something which is like super class of everything. Anything can be go inside an object. So that's like, this is the concept of like boxing unboxing. So this row is gonna be unboxed or boxed to this variable automatically.
Okay, yeah, runtime it catching the object.
Yeah, it gets the object runtime, so it doesn't really know about that. But the problem with this thing is you loses the ability to have some kind of intelligence here, because the compiler doesn't know what the type is, so it doesn't give you right functions. So if you know the type, that's perfect. If you don't know, then you have this way of initializing those types, dynamic types. Now my dr has this all these functionalities because it knows that you're talking about data row. So you can have this intelligence. Otherwise, this goes away.
Yeah.
It's better to know that type. Otherwise, so generally people don't prefer var because it's very dynamic and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really give you control over code.
Mm.
So generally it provides the type. Now I'll show
Okay.
you one more way to write strings. So there's a thing called string dot format. And in this format, you have to provide string in a formatted way. So I know that I will have a user ID. I can just provide 0,
Mm.
then comma,
So
username,
name
provide 1,
one.
and then comma. I can provide objects, what's at 0 position, what is 1 position. So my
Mm.
0 is dr user ID. Now again, double quotes.
Mm.
My dr at username. So this is neat as compared to putting a plus plus and adding a string.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's like generally if you're putting a formatting kind of thing in somewhere, you put this, use this approach.
Mm.
Now if I run this, I should be able to see all my users without actually stopping the application. Okay, so it throws a connection string because it doesn't. Now see, as these kind of thing can happen. You're saying
Mm.
I have an unrecognized attribute key somewhere. I don't recognize this string as a connection string. So the problem that might be here is because of this function. Maybe there's a different function thing rather than this. So let me just check.
Mm.
So we are still using the same connection string dot connection string, but it's not matching somewhere. Dot connection string, and is the app config is db con string, and maybe we have to use different con string. Add name. So that was the problem. So now it has to be name, not key.
Okay. Mm.
I'm using a key here, and see,
Mm.
it gives a warning. If
Mm.
something is wrong here, now it
Mm.
just goes away.
Mm.
These are the signs that you get, and this is problem that you'll face while coding. You'll see, oh, something
Mm.
wrong is going on. Then you will see, maybe you check my code that I'm giving you, that what's I have done, or maybe you go like Google and figure out what the problem is.
Mm.
Now this should run. So if I run this, yeah, so if I enter user ID, you see this is neat.
Mm.
If I have to do this using string, I have to put plus equal to kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have just
Mm.
avoided that using string format. So now this is
Mm.
perfectly fine. Now the power of this app config is, if I go to this location, what happens is we create a exe of it
Mm.
that I can run every time. So if you go to bin
Mm.
debug, this is something that you give to someone else. So you see there's no code here,
Mm.
just exe and config. So if I run this, it's going to run the way it's running right now.
Oh, okay.
So now it's going to run.
Mm.
Now you can give me this exe, like this is my code. You can just try it
Mm.
out. The problem
Mm.
with that is I don't have the code. So
Mm.
if I want to change connection string, how will I do that? So it gives you a config file here also.
Mm.
You can just click and open it using Notepad and
Mm.
change connection string and use it that. So that's like a very powerful way of
Mm.
using an application. So that's how generally that's how people prefer. So the connection string is there. I can
Mm.
change it to maybe my piece, I'm using SQL Server something
Mm.
Express SS. If I change this, then this exe is gonna use this config now. Now you see it's gonna break.
Mm.
It's breaking now
Mm.
because there's no server name that. But I'm giving
Mm.
you power to using configurations to actually change the applications. So it's gonna
Mm.
break and something now is gonna happen. It's gonna break down whatever. But
Mm.
that's how it works. And now every time I'm debugging it, like I'm rebuilding it or building it, it's creating a new exe here every time. So now you see my config file will be restored to normal. See, it's restored back
Mm.
because every time I'm building it, I'm basically recompiling this exe and storing it here. So you get the concept of configurations.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Mm.
you need to share this application. This is not for your use, right? You have to give it to someone
Mm.
else somewhere.
Mm.
And once you do that, you have to make it configurable. Otherwise, that guy won't be able to use your application.
Mm. So yeah, when he's downloading his system, he can change that connection all details
Yeah,
according to
exactly.
his yeah.
Obviously, and he should be able to, right?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
what you have tested is your own server. Maybe
Mm.
somebody
Yeah.
else with some different server.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
You should give some way to change those connection strings so that everything can happen using config. And right
Mm.
now I'm using connection string. I can even provide the key value pair somewhere. So
Mm.
this whole thing is configurable. You
Mm.
can provide certain keys here, certain things here, and you can just fetch everything out here.
Mm.
So that's how applications configurable. That's like the first modular part. Next is interface class, which is like really neat and nice, because
Mm.
the thing that's happening here is right now I'm giving you a control to create connection, open connection, but I don't want that. I want somebody else to manage on your behalf,
Mm.
and you just provide a query or a text, and everything will be called, connection opened, and the final output is just you'll get just a data table.
Mm.
You don't want to open create those connection again and again. See, as you can see, the code repetition happening here every time.
Yeah.
For a new stored procedure, I have to rewrite this code again.
Mm.
So that's like a problem. So we can modelize this whole thing. So let's start with that. So first thing to create the application modular is like you can even start with like class directly, but the
Mm.
best way to go through is to use an interface. So interface helps you to give a skeleton to a function. So like if I'm going to create an interface, the standard like the standard way is to create use with start with then maybe DB. That's my interface now.
Mm.
And this interface is created with the thought that I will use this interface even with the MySQL or SQL Server or some other database later on. So I'll use this interface
Mm.
skeleton to create a new manager which can be used with MySQL also.
Mm.
So that's the idea of interface. In this interface, we don't provide any implementation, just a skeleton. So what my
Mm.
class functions will hold. So I will provide a way. I'll add a function SQL connection that somebody should be able to get connection from my application. That's the skeleton. Next, I
Mm.
would want somebody to execute a query. So I want if he executes a query, I want to give him a connection back, like a data table back. So data table execute query, and he's going to provide me a SQL query. That's function, and the other function I'm going to provide is execute word procedure and string procedure name. And now see, I'm going to do function overloading here. So I'm going to use the same function name. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to add extra parameter. If I do this, there's a problem here, right? Same
Mm.
function name, same parameter type, everything is same.
Mm. Yeah.
Now if I do list with SQL parameters, and if I do parameters, then this is function overloading. Same function name but
Ah,
different parameters.
right. Yeah. Got it.
That's a function
Mm.
overloading concept.
Functional. Mm.
And let's just avoid that. No need to written connection key. So my interface was basically with the thought that anybody can execute a SQL query,
Mm.
anybody can execute a source procedure, anybody can execute a source procedure with some parameters.
Mm.
So that's the skeleton. That's
Mm.
what my thought is. Now
Mm.
I have to implement the skeleton somewhere. So I'll just create a new class now, and I'll call this DB manager because I have to manage my DB, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll just go and I'll just implement this interface because I want those functions to be automatically here.
Mm.
Now if you see if I put enter, it's giving me a sign that you are using interface but you're not implementing those functions,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Put control dot and you say implement interface. So all those functions are automatically implemented,
Okay.
but they give an exception that not implemented exception because nothing is written here.
Mm.
So if I execute this function, it's gonna break, saying that there's nothing to execute there, right?
Mm.
So let's first implement an execute query. So now we'll be very very general about it, the whole thing. So SQL connection, we need a SQL connection, right?
Yeah.
And now I want this class to be not static. Everybody has their own manager because everybody has their own connection, right? So
Mm.
different connections can also happen. So I'll put a constructor. So that's the way you define a constructor in a class. And constructor, I'm gonna take the DB connection key, this connection key,
Mm. Yeah.
because maybe somebody is using different connection string, right? It could
Mm.
have a new connection string. So I have to take that, give me the connection key, and I'll manage everything for you.
Mm.
I'll execute your query, I'll execute your source procedure, just give me the connection string. That's the idea of connection key. Now what I'll do is I'll just have to do the same thing again. So I have to first get the connection string. This time I have to use this key, whichever is provided to me. And I have to again use this class. So I got from this connection key, I got the connection string. Now what I'll do is I'll create a new connection object. This connection string. And this is what I've done in my constructor. This is the constructor. I'll show you the whole execution using, the breakpoints, but that's how the connection is created. Like this is the constructor now. I haven't opened the connection as you can see here. The connection is not opened here. I just created an object and I'll use it. Now I have to execute query. This query is given to me. I have to give back data table. So definitely I'm using an offline mode.
Offline.
I'm not using online mode, right?
Mm.
Now, so I'll just create a SQL data adapter. New SQL data adapter. Then I'll just provide this command, SQL query. Then I have to provide this connection. Then what I'll do is try. I'll put everything in try catch, connection open. Something breaks, then I can handle it. Then I'll just create a data table here. And I'll say adapter dot fill data table. And that's it. So I just, because I have to return, this is a function, I return back the DT. Because I have to give back the data table, otherwise it's gonna break apart. Now exception, if something wrong happens, then I just do console write line of this toString. And finally, I just do connection close. And because now it's still giving me an exception here. It's saying that's not all code paths return a value. Because if something goes here, it's returned, right? But if something goes here, no, nothing is returned. So it gives me an exception. So maybe I have to give back a blank table then. So then this thing is done. Now you see, this is very generic. Anybody can just create an object, you execute query and get the output. I'll show you that. So now in the next thing, I'm going to use the same approach. This time I'm just calling a stored procedure. So I'll just copy this, paste this. This time it's not query, right? It's a procedure name.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to create using this thing. I'll use a SQL command. New SQL command. This time I'm taking procedure name and connection. In command, I'm telling command type to be command type dot stored procedure.
The procedure name you got it from where? The SQL command within that?
This is the as a parameter. I'm taking as a parameter.
Ah, parameter. Okay.
And this is a function which is not having any parameters, so I'll just provide a procedure name. No @ thing. And finally, I'm gonna use the same thing, adapter fill dt, and it's gonna work perfectly. Now that in the third case, it's a little bit tricky because now we have a parameter thing. So I did a very fast and neat way that rather than having, writing those, because I don't know what @ user ID is, right? I will never know the parameter's name. So I can't make this function generic enough to have that parameter name automatically. So what I do is I ask those parameter name in that particular format which I want in a list. So this is a list which takes SQL parameter objects only.
Okay.
And I take the list from outside. You give me the list and I'll add it. So this time what I'll do is command. I'll go through this parameter one by one. SQL parameter param in parameters that I'm getting from outside. And I'll add this parameters command dot parameters dot add, because it takes a SQL parameter, you see, as a value. So I'll just add it, this param. So if you give me 5, 10, 15, whatever, I'll just add all those. And you decide what the parameter look like. I'm going to add in the query. And then everything is just same. You create a new table, you connection, you fill it, and just run it. So my manager is ready. It's for like perfectly done. Now what I do is I'm going to write a very clean code now. Fetch query. So first I need to create a DB manager object. So this is my class. Why I'm able to get this in this program CS? Because my DB manager is in the same namespace. You see, program CS, everyone is in the same namespace.
Yes.
And this IBDB is in the same namespace. Therefore, I'm able to automatically get it. Otherwise, I would have to like you have a using statement somewhere.
Mm. Mm.
Now I'm able to get it because I have to just use it. So DB
Mm.
manager, maybe a small m, DB manager. I have to create a new object because this is not a static class. Now, if I do this, you see automatically shows me that you need a DB connection key. I can't create it this object without connection key because in my constructor, I've said it that you need a connection key to create an object.
Mm.
Are you getting this?
Can you repeat one more time?
Yeah, so now I have to create an object of this class, right? To call
Mm.
functions. So
Yeah.
when I want to create an object, it
Mm.
automatically says me that give me connection key, then only I can create object.
Ah.
Because I have defined
Mm.
constructor which says that you need to get
Mm.
connection key to create an
Right.
object. That's the
Mm.
power of constructor.
Mm.
So that decides how you create objects. So this time I'm going to pass that
So
my connection.
each class there is a constructor
Yeah,
should be.
every time. Yeah.
Mm.
Every time I create a new object, I have to provide a constructor.
Mm.
The idea of this thing is because every new class will have a new object which will have a new connection.
Mm.
So every new connection should have a new manager, right?
Mm.
There shouldn't be same manager for every connection.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
it can't be a static class. It has to be
Mm.
like a dynamic class.
Mm.
And every manager needs to know that where should I connect to. So therefore
Mm.
it needs a key. So this
Mm.
key is same that I've added in app config db constring. So I'm going to add just db constring here. And now manager knows that I have to go to this server,
Mm.
create a connection and just sit till my functions are executed. So that's
Mm.
how manager is like created.
Mm.
And I'm able to do this because I have created a constructor which takes con key as a
Mm.
parameter. If I just miss this out, then I can create constructor like blank
Mm.
because I have set parameters, so I have to use it. Now
Yeah.
I have to call a query, right? So I'll
Mm.
have a string SQL query select star from user data. Now you see the thing is very neat. All I
Mm.
have to do is data table data manager dot execute query. I don't have to worry anything about how connection is opened, how connection is closed, what they did. I just provide the query and they give me output.
Mm.
You see the power of modularity?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry anything. Everything is like given to me on my plate
Mm.
and I have to just comment this out. I have to just call
Yeah.
and get
Got it.
get
Yeah.
get that thing out.
Mm. Yeah.
So this is SQL query. So now if I do just for each that I was doing before, I should be able to get the data the way I'm getting it. So if I run this, should work. See,
Mm.
for me as a user, I'm just doing these 3 lines of code, but somewhere somebody's managing it. So
Mm.
if you want to see how it works, I can put a breakpoint. Okay. Now when it reaches this function, I can put step into F11.
Mm. Mm.
That means it goes inside this class. See, it comes here now.
Mm.
You use F11 to go through every lines of code. Creates a SQL. It has a SQL query. So
Mm.
let's start from user data. It's a connection object which was created in the constructor. F11 data table opens connection. You see that table is empty.
Mm.
If I open this table, it's going to be empty. It's going to fire fill. Now table should have data.
Mm.
See, it's going line by line, and now it's in my class DB manager. Now it returns it. It goes to finally because I told it's going to definitely go to finally, no matter what. And then it comes out, and it's done.
Mm.
So debugging these breakpoints is a very nice way to understand how code is working.
Mm.
And F11 goes basically takes you down that particular line, and F10 jumps out.
So usually the companies is using like this in using the interfaces.
Yeah.
Interface.
So
Yeah.
this is the way by which I create write a very modular code. So you
Huh.
see in our next applications, we won't be recreating this whole code. I'll be
Mm.
showing you a class library approach, and we'll get this DLL out, and we will use these functions again and again everywhere.
Mm. So okay. Um, so when you're using interface and class, can you tell me the uh,
Difference.
yeah, it's a body. Yeah,
So
we
see,
can.
the interface is a skeleton. It doesn't implement this function. So
Yeah.
why I'm saying this interface is basically used if you remember the term of dependency injection.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
dependency injection works because of interface.
Okay.
So it's like a
Mm.
whole new approach, but it
Mm.
works with interface and how interface is helpful. Now this DB manager, as you can see, is specifically for SQL Server, right?
Mm.
Suppose
Ah.
I want to create a DB manager for MySQL, it won't work.
Mm.
So
Mm.
in that case, I have to
Mm.
redefine a class, which is MySQL DB manager, right?
Mm.
And then I can re-implement it using IDB, and there'll be it'll help me to give me a skeleton that what
Mm.
function do I need to use in MySQL DB manager.
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
modernizes things. So it's like a class knows what function should I need to implement
Need
then
to.
to
Mm.
actually work at a DB manager.
Mm.
So that's the
Yeah.
idea.
Mm.
And
So
as a guy,
it's a it main it's a reducing the complexity, easy to looking at. The main advantage of the interface in that case, it gives a skeleton
yeah,
at
it
this.
gives you a skeleton and see the power is now if I'm using this, I can make this as
Mm.
IDB also. I can create an object inside an
Mm.
IDB. So I don't really care about what SQL Server or MySQL is going on at backend.
Mm.
This
Mm.
guy still has can call those functions, but it
Okay.
knows it doesn't really. I don't really know about is it a SQL Server or MySQL to
Mm.
implement to call those functions. I know this function is gonna work because that's
Mm.
how the function is working everywhere.
Got
So
it. Yeah.
this is the idea of dependency injection that at runtime I decide what to use, and at coding time I just write a very generic code.
Mm.
That's how dependency
Mm.
injection actually works. That's like
Okay.
a very
Yeah.
deep topic.
Mm.
You'll see like a very nice very nice
Mm.
practicality of interface in dependency injection.
Mm.
But right now it's you understand from this perspective that this is how people like modular code. This is
Mm.
how I give a skeleton to a function. Like this is the
Yeah.
function that you need to implement in a class.
Mm.
Now similarly, I can this is very clean, right? Similarly, I can do this that I can execute a stored procedure. And this time I provide a procedure name get all users and see everything is solved for me. This one line
Mm.
is doing everything. So this is very clean way. I call this procedure. It goes inside, does the same thing that I'm writing here, but now I can call any stored procedure using this function. It could be get all users, could be get user, or whatever.
Mm. Mm.
Now
Yeah.
next thing is like if I do stored procedure of get because get user, then I have to provide a parameter list. You see, this is the thing I was talking about, function overloading. Now in the arrow, your two functions are coming
Mm.
because I've created the same name and two functions, right?
Ah.
This
Mm.
is function overloading. So that's why
Yeah.
it's as I post comma, it knows that you're going now in a second function.
Mm.
Now you
Mm.
need to have parameters list. So
Yeah.
we can create a parameter list, SQL parameter, because I have to provide a parameter. Params equal to new list of SQL parameter. List basically, contains
Mm.
those. Is basically is a collection of these SQL parameter object. Let's change this to parameters. Parameters dot add the way to you add things into list.
Mm.
And when you're adding it, you need to create a SQL parameter because that's the object I've set for the list.
Mm.
So new SQL parameter. And when you're defining it, you can provide parameter name and a value, right? You can
Yeah.
provide at the rate user ID. And a value is again you need to get from console. This is the way I was getting from console. You will be like doing exactly same thing for update and delete. That's like the task
Mm.
that you'll be practicing.
Mm.
It'll help you to get more idea about stored procedure and all these things.
Okay.
So now I'll just put user ID. So my parameters are ready. Now I can just pass this parameter as a next parameter, as a next thing for stored procedure. Now you see again, this thing is dynamic. I can put any procedure name and any parameter list is gonna work.
Mm.
So that's why this modularity approach is very helpful. Imagine
Mm.
you create a library and then you can work your entire database with that library.
Mm.
Now you don't have to write the raw code again for same procedure or some other function or for some other query.
Mm.
And this guy is handling connection open. So I'm not even connection opening and closing connection. See, I'm just writing this line and I know something is going to work.
Yeah.
Though that code is also written by me, but that's how the modules work. You write a module which is very generic and anybody can use it. That's the way of, that's the modularity of class interface comes into picture. You can even write this class without an interface. That's not an issue. But interface helps you to design a function class before that. I have 5 functions, so these are the names. Now let's create a class.
Yeah, yeah.
It gives you a skeleton, a kind of design that yes, this is the design I want to use. And later on, this design can be very helpful to create a similar class with some different implementation, having same functions. So your code won't change here. You're still calling the same function, but this time you're using different class. So then again, code usability is higher. So these are all OOPS concept. And interface is very important for hiding those OOPS concepts.
Yeah, yeah.
Now if I run this, it's gonna still work. It's gonna ask for user ID too. Oh, wait. So somewhere in this function, we are doing something different. So see, it breaks and it gives me that error. So we are not adding command with adapter somewhere. Adapter, just select command. You're missing this in this function.
Yeah.
Therefore, it says that I can't really fill it. So now it's filling it. So that's the whole modularity that we're talking about. My suggestion is this video is getting recorded, and it's a very good practice if you go through this on your own.
Yeah, yeah. I will do that. Yeah.
Because it's gonna work because you're seeing it's running right now. So definitely, if you go step by step, you'll get more ideas to why things are working the way they're working. Now,
Yeah.
in the last 30 minutes, I'll tell you again, because this is recorded. You can just try it on your own, and we
Yeah.
can definitely meet again on Monday.
Sure.
How
Yeah.
to push this code, on GitHub, like what Git actually is. So first thing of that you need to understand, I'll send you this link to download Git. So if you download Git for Windows, so you just go 64-bit most probably. That's PC you're using. So it's gonna download. That's Git 2.27 for 64. You install this Git first. This is the way you wanna work around with Git. Now what I am doing is whatever code I've written here, I want to push it somewhere online so that somebody else can download it and use it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I want. That's where the Git enters. Now I'll just install Git. And I want to show you installation because it's a little bit complicated. So if you go step by step the way I'm going, then you'll be fine. So you can choose any path. Like this
Yeah.
is perfect. Yeah, and this is also correct. Nothing to click or do something about it.
Okay.
There is also nothing to change. You can use let it be Vim, or you can just change it to Visual Studio Code. Whichever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really help. It doesn't really matter. It will still work.
The Git will be defaultly in Visual Studio.
No. So Git will work as a command line application, and it will be integrated with Visual Studio. So everything I'll do by Visual Studio. So you don't have to worry anything about that. It just you can choose whichever thing you want. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
This is very important. This line has to be selected. You shouldn't go above or do
The
beyond
middle. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
middle one. It's recommended by default. It's automatically selected, so you should go with that. Then again, this is same. This shouldn't be changed. This is also fine. It's also fine. So these are so many things here, but everything is like nothing to change here. This is also not a big issue. And don't select this. Not needed. We not need. You don't have to work on sudo consoles or anything. Just install it. As soon as you install it, you'll see something happening here. Like I'll show you that. You see now this add to source control button is here, right? This basically asks you to add the solution to a particular GitHub application. Now I'll show you something else. This is getting installed. Now what you do is you go to GitHub. So there's an application. There's a website called GitHub. You create your account here. It's free. Anybody can create account here. You just go and create new account. Just remember the username, password that account, and that's it.
Okay.
And I'll show you how it's gonna work, how GitHub works. So this is like a profile page, like my profile, and this is how your profile goes. Because I've been doing a Git lots of times. My contributions on all the applications are coming here.
Mm.
but your page will be empty, and like this will be all empty because you haven't created any repositories anywhere.
Mm.
So any project I'm going to push on GitHub is going to create a new repo for it. That's the way they are saying, like a folder, and that folder will have name, some kind of name.
Mm.
These are all the repositories that I have with multiple
Mm.
names.
Mm.
So when I'm going to push this application, I'll be pushing it via phone book name. So you should be seeing a phone book when I push this application, right?
Yeah.
Now Git is installed,
Mm.
you can just put next and close it. Nothing to worry about. Now go to your application and there's a button add to source control. Once you get installed, just click on this
Mm.
button. You will be having
To
seeing this
source
button
control.
and just click on it. It's gonna
Mm.
automatically say Git. If it's not
Mm.
installed correctly, it won't say Git.
Mm. Mm.
Because you installed Git, it knows that you have to push something via Git. So I
Mm.
just click on it and it will take this entire application to a local repository. Like you see, automatically something happens here.
Mm.
Now what happens is, because I have new application, new a bit, so it did something for me and it
Mm.
opens a window for you this. Now you see GitHub, the same name is coming here. Now I want this application to be published to GitHub. Like I want a folder in my repository here,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So I'll just click on this publish to GitHub and my name is already coming, but your won't be coming
Mm.
because it's new account. You can just click on add and change account.
Mm.
And then when you do that, it's gonna ask username password for your GitHub,
Yeah.
the one you create.
Mm.
So once you do that sign in, then you'll
Mm.
have your name automatically displayed here.
Okay.
Now I want to put as a phone book console app, and
Mm.
description is optional. I want to put the same description.
Mm.
I can make it a private repository. In that case, nobody can see it on a profile.
Mm.
I can make it public that anybody can see it.
Oh, okay. Mm.
So I'll just make it a private repository because
Mm.
it's something I don't want public to see.
Mm.
As for my understanding, and I
Mm.
just click
In the
publish.
future, we can change it even once
Yeah,
you
yeah,
make.
yeah, 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 you can.
Mm.
GitHub, like this whole application, I'll show you the whole
Mm.
GitHub thing. So
Mm.
when I click publish, it will be published and it will be shown on my GitHub account. It's very easy
Mm.
because I'm using Visual Studio as a helper. It does
Mm.
everything for me. So
Mm.
everything is published. It's done. Now if I go to GitHub, I should be seeing a new repository.
Mm.
You see, phone book console app. It's
Yes.
private.
Yeah. Mm. Mm.
And when I click here, so whole application is published. So you see phone book console app, my
Mm.
DB manager, IBDBS
Mm.
program. I can click and view these files.
Mm.
This is the class I was talking about. We were writing right now this whole class.
Yeah.
So everything is published online. The
Mm.
power of this is now you can share this code
Mm.
via this URL.
Mm.
This is the URL. If I share this URL, you'll get this code. So if I just put it on Skype, you should be able to
Mm.
download your
Mm.
code using this URL. I'll show you that
Okay.
how that works. But
Ah.
that's how we share the code now.
Mm.
It's published somewhere at GitHub website. Now I can download it using this website. I can just open this Git and I can do download zip.
Download zip. Okay.
Then you
Mm.
can download this code.
Mm.
It's pretty straightforward. I can just share this URL and you can download this code now.
Yeah.
Because it's private, so you won't be able to do it right now. So now
Mm.
I can change this application, to
Mm.
public. So I can just go here in the
So if
settings.
yeah, in that case, you can do it only for particular person, correct?
If
Like
I'm making it public, I'm making it public for everyone.
everyone, yeah. But if you
I'm,
want a particular person also, you can do it.
yeah, you can. So what I can also do is I can
Mm.
just add collaborators here, and you can
Mm.
give me your GitHub username, and I can
Mm.
add you. Then you can see my repositories.
Mm.
That's a
Yeah.
particular thing. Right now, I'm making it for everyone because you don't have any account yet.
Mm.
So I'm gonna click on change visibility and I want to make it public. I'm gonna copy this because it
Mm.
wants to write and change. It wants me to confirm my password
Mm.
and that's it. The application is public now. Now if I share you this link, you should be able
Mm.
to download the entire code. So that's how we will be sharing the code.
Okay. Yeah. Mm.
Now you should be able to download the code.
Mm.
In the next session, I'll be showing you how to directly, like I'll show you right now also,
Mm.
that you won't even have to go to GitHub to download this code. I'll show you
Mm.
that. So now how GitHub works is, so this application is pushed now. Now you can
Mm.
see something amazing happening is there's a lock everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It
Mm.
basically says that this file has been at a write state, nothing has been changed as of now. Now you'll
Mm.
see what happens is if I, if I comment this out, this whole data thing,
Mm.
and if I uncomment this, if I save it now, you see something
Mm.
happens. There's a red
Ah.
star tick
Mm.
happens because it says the
Yeah.
file is now changed, but this
Change.
file is not in sync with the file
Mm.
that's at the GitHub.
Mm.
This file
Mm.
and that file is now in a different state.
Mm.
So you see, and something also that there's a
Mm.
one change mark here happening.
Mm.
It was previously zero. Now what I do is I want to push this change, like I want to make sure this change, comes here in my GitHub, right? That's
Mm.
how the coding thing works.
Ah.
Because I want to make sure my application is up to date at the
Mm.
GitHub side. So what I'll
Yeah.
do is I'll just click here.
Mm.
I'll say update some message updating program CS, and I'll say
Mm.
commit all. So you'll see this
Oh.
is gone now.
Ah.
This is zero, but this is one. So
Mm.
this change is still not, you know, present here because you do a two-level commit. You do first commit to local, then you go to GitHub.
Mm.
So I'm still not able to see that change.
Mm.
And that's what this line says, that there's one change to be pushed.
Mm. Mm.
Now
Yeah.
let's do one more thing. I'll push it all the changes together. So I'll just comment this out
Mm.
and save it. Now you see one coming, one change because I just changed, made a new change.
Yeah.
And I'll just click here. I'll say update and I'll commit. So now there are two changes that needs to be pushed
Mm.
on the server.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I click that, so it shows me that these are the two changes that you haven't pushed on your,
Mm.
outside server. So I just click that and I do push.
Mm.
Push pull is the concept of Git, which basically says that all these things that you're changing, I'll be pushing to the master branch. We
Okay.
will be going to branch thing later on, but as
Mm.
of now, just because it'll be too much for
Mm.
you to grab
Mm.
at one moment.
Mm.
But now, as you did this change, you will be going to and you'll be seeing this change happening in your file. You see, this is
Mm.
uncommented now.
Mm.
This is all uncommented,
Mm.
and you can even see if you go on a code site, you'll see Abhinav Sharma committed this code
Mm.
in 1 minute ago. If I click on
Mm.
that, I can see what change did I did. You see,
Ah.
I removed this and I
Mm.
added this.
Okay. Mm.
So you see, if think from a perspective that there are 100 people contributing this code,
Mm.
who is committing what, who is doing what change, I can all see here.
Mm.
That this
Mm.
guy has been, changing this file, this guy has been doing that. And this is
Mm.
on a server side, so anybody, can always revert back to previous code. Imagine you
Mm.
did some change,
Mm.
everything is breaking apart. Now you want to go back. How will you do that in your if you don't have a GitHub thing?
Mm.
I
Mm.
can always revert back to a previous file. I can just right click and say that I want to go back to a previous file. So like for this,
Mm.
I can say in program CS that view history, and this is the changes I've done. I
Mm.
say right click, revert,
Mm.
and that's how I revert my commit. If I go to my program file, you see that
Mm.
this is back.
Mm.
You see how powerful that is. Think from
Yeah.
perspective that you
So
have
if
did.
you change it here, it will automatically come to the real one.
Yeah. So now whatever I did here, I've got
Ah.
my code back. I save my file. Then
Mm.
I have to push this change again to GitHub.
Oh, again we need to push it. Ah.
Yeah. So
Okay. Mm.
I've
Mm.
reverted code. I've
Mm.
got my
Mm.
thing. Everything is working. I'll commit all.
Mm.
Then I'll just push it again
Again.
because
Ah.
GitHub has to be know that
Mm.
you are doing some change. So I'll
Mm.
just
Mm.
push. Now
Mm.
this change is all reverted.
Yeah.
So that's like one more amazing utility of this.
Mm.
You can do a collaboration and now multiple people can write the same code. Now I can also have a Git. You can also have a Git. We can both
Mm.
put push commits.
Mm.
We can contribute at the same time in the same code. That's how the
Mm.
whole world works. They have a
Mm.
GitHub repository. They share. They commit. So this is called SVN. This is called like version control.
Mm.
Every file is a version. That's why it's called version control. And I can revert and jump around codes. Now there's a
Mm.
concept of
So
branch also.
something,
Yeah.
see, I did some changes. That
Mm.
changes reflect in the Git repository, but
Mm.
it was some mistake.
So you can revert
So
back.
revert back. But you also have this. If you download it, you need to get the
Yeah, yeah,
updated.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So if somebody else is doing the change and I have also, like you did the push and I have downloaded that, now I also have a bad commit, right?
Mm.
So then in that case you say I have pushed the update, then I'll
Mm.
take a pull.
Mm.
So what pull does is it
Uh,
again fetches all the new updates and update my whole repository. So whatever
mm.
change you
Mm.
did, I
Mm.
will get back those changes.
Mm.
So there's a
Mm.
concept of push and pull. You see why
Mm.
this is called push and pull? You
Well,
push
yeah.
something, I pulled it back, then
Mm.
we are both in the same state now.
Same. Yeah.
Now a
Mm.
problem can happen that you are doing some file change
Mm.
which can't be merged back. So then in that
Mm.
case conflicts can happen. So in
Mm.
order to avoid that, people generally work on different files.
Mm.
People don't work on same file. So you are using working on DB manager, and I'll try to avoid that because if you're writing something somewhere and I'm also writing, we both did a push, then conflict will
Mm.
happen and the things won't be
Mm.
pushed.
Mm.
That's why the
Mm.
things has to be modular. You're working on a module that's your module. Why would anybody will change your file?
Mm.
So
Mm.
your commit will never hamper my commits.
Mm. Mm.
So that's the idea of modularity or and thing.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
let's now see how the code is shared. So
Mm.
now I'll create a new Visual Studio 19. Let's create a new app. And I gave you this link, right? I
Mm.
gave you this link, this Git link. You
Mm.
can just
Yeah.
copy it. It's very simple now to share code.
Mm.
Let's Visual Studio open. And this time, rather than creating a new project, I can just clone it.
Mm.
I told you this, there's a button of cloning.
Clone. Yeah.
You can click it and it's gonna ask you for the URL. You say
Mm.
this is the URL.
Mm.
So I'll say a new name, maybe anything, because my name is already there. If it's like colliding. I'm saying
Mm.
a new name, console app 2, and I just do clone. I will be able to do cloning only if I have like a public repository or I have given you rights.
Mm.
Then only it's work. If private, then I can't really clone it. So because
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
made the application public, so I can
Mm.
clone it and see it's all downloaded.
Mm.
I never shared code with you via Gmail. You don't have to
Mm.
really open it, do something and do a heavy problem. It's
Mm.
like a pretty standard way to do like coding
Mm.
and downloading.
Mm.
So that's how you will be downloading your. But in order to do that first, you have to first install Git.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't install Git, you won't be able to clone your repository.
Mm.
So
The clone repository. I don't need to be create a Git repository in that case. I can pull your one and put
yeah,
in the
yeah,
path. Yeah.
you
Mm.
can pull my one, then you can
Mm.
push my whole code to your own
Yeah.
repository.
If you give me permission. Yeah. Public. Make it a
Yeah,
public.
if I
Correct.
make it public, then only you can clone it.
Clone
But
it.
you
Mm.
can once you
Mm.
clone the code, you can just push it in your repository wherever you want.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So
Got it. Yeah.
that's how the cloning thing works.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
opening that. So so there are two ways you can like this is the fastest way, and if
Mm.
other way is that I gave you a link, then you can
Mm.
just go to my link and download zip.
Mm.
Then